Buried to her neck in the dunes. Part 1. The twin suns of Keturah 7 burned hot in the orange sky. The heat was terrible. It pressed down on everything like a heavy blanket made of fire. Nothing moved in the endless sea of sand dunes except for a small group of figures, walking slowly across the landscape. Yuna could barely feel her legs anymore. The two temple enforcers had been dragging her for hours. Her wrists were bound with thick rope that cut into her gray-blue skin. Her feet left long trails in the golden sand behind her. She had stopped crying a long time ago. There were no more tears left inside her body. She was 23 years old. Among the Velith people, this was still very young. She had her whole life ahead of her. She had dreams. She wanted to become a healer. She wanted to help people. She wanted to watch her younger sister Hannah grow up and find happiness. Now she would never do any of those things. The crime they accused her of was simple. She had refused to become the wife of Minho, the son of High Priest Dawan. Minho was cruel. Everyone knew this. He had hurt his previous wives. 2 of them had died under strange circumstances. The third one had run away and was never seen again. When Minho had chosen Yuna, she had felt her heart turn to ice. She had begged her parents to help her, but her parents were poor farmers. They had no power against the temple. When the bonding ceremony came, Yuna had stood before the altar and said the word that sealed her fate. No. Just one word. One small word. But among the Velith, refusing a high priest's son was the worst crime a woman could commit. It was an insult to the temple. It was an insult to the gods. The punishment was ancient and terrible. Death by the singing dunes. The enforcers finally stopped walking. The lead enforcer, a tall male with scars on his face, looked around and nodded. This spot was far from any village, far from any trade routes. No one would pass by here for months. "This place will do," he said. They threw Yuna down onto the sand. She landed hard and felt the air leave her lungs. Before she could recover, they grabbed her and started digging. The sand was soft and easy to move. Within minutes, they had created a deep hole. They put Yuna inside the hole. They positioned her so she was standing straight up. Then they began to fill the hole with sand. Yuna felt the sand rising around her legs. Then her waist. Then her chest. It pressed against her body from all sides. She could not move at all. The sand was heavy and tight. It squeezed her like a giant fist. When they finished, only her head remained above the surface. She looked like a strange flower growing in the desert. A flower that would soon wilt and die. The lead enforcer knelt down in front of her. His eyes were cold and empty. He did not see her as a person. He saw her as a criminal, a thing to be punished. "The suns will rise and fall 3 times, he said. "On the first day, you will feel great thirst. On the second day, your mind will begin to break. On the third day, your body will shut down. This is the mercy of the gods. They give you time to think about your sins." Yuna wanted to spit in his face. She wanted to scream that she had done nothing wrong, that refusing to marry a monster was not a crime. But her throat was too dry. Her body was too weak. So she just stared at him with her 4 eyes full of hatred. The enforcer stood up and walked back to his hovercraft. The other enforcer followed him. Within moments, they were gone, disappearing over the dunes in a cloud of dust. Yuna was alone. The first hour was not so bad. She could still think clearly. She looked around at the endless sand and tried to find something to focus on. A rock, a plant, anything. But there was nothing. Just sand and sky and the 2 suns slowly moving overhead. She thought about Hannah. Her little sister was only 16. She was smart and kind and had a beautiful laugh. Yuna had always protected her. When their parents died in the plague 2 years ago, Yuna had taken care of Hana alone. She had worked hard to feed them both. She had kept them safe. Now who would protect Hana? Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes again. She had thought there were no more tears left, but she was wrong. They rolled down her cheeks and fell onto the sand below. Please, she thought. Please let Hana be safe. Please let someone take care of her. The first sun began to set. The sky turned from orange to purple to deep blue. The temperature dropped quickly. The desert was strange that way. Burning hot during the day, freezing cold at night. Yun started to shiver. Her body shook against the tight sand around her. Her teeth clicked together. She could see her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. The second sun hung low on the horizon, giving off a weak red light. Soon it would set too, and the darkness would be complete. Yuna closed her 4 eyes. She tried to find peace inside her mind. She thought about happy memories. Playing with Hana in the shallow pools near their home. Eating sweet fruit during the harvest festival. Listening to her mother sing old songs in the evening. These memories were all she had left. She decided that she would not cry anymore. She would not beg. She would face death with dignity. She would show the temple that they could break her body, but not her spirit. Time passed. The cold grew worse. Yuna drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she dreamed. Sometimes she just floated in darkness. She could not tell what was real anymore. Then she heard something. At first, she thought it was the wind. The singing dunes got their name from the strange sounds the wind made when it blew across the sand. It could sound like voices, like music, like crying, but this was different. This was steady, rhythmic. It sounded like footsteps. Yuna opened her eyes. The second sun had set. The sky was full of stars now. Millions of them, spread across the darkness like scattered diamonds. And in that starlight, she saw a figure walking toward her across the dunes. The figure was shaped wrong. It moved wrong. It was not Velith. It was something else. Yuna's hearts began to beat faster. Both of them pounding against her chest. Fear and hope mixed together inside her. The figure came closer. She could see it more clearly now. It was wearing some kind of suit. Its face was covered by a helmet. It walked on 2 legs like a Velith, but its body was different. Smaller, softer looking. Then the figure stopped. It looked down at her, and a voice came from inside the helmet. What the hell? Yuna did not understand the words. Her translation implants struggled to process them. But the tone was clear. Surprise, confusion, concern. The figure knelt down beside her. Hands reached toward her face. Strange hands with only 5 fingers instead of 6. Yuna tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. Help me. Buried to her neck in the dunes. Part 2. Taiho had been walking for 3 days. His legs hurt. His back hurt. Everything hurt. The crash had been bad, but he had survived. His ship had not. The memory was still fresh in his mind. The warning lights flashing red. The engines failing one by one. The ground rushing up toward him like an angry fist. He had barely managed to eject before the ship exploded against the rocks. Now his ship was a pile of burning metal somewhere in the northern wastes. And he was alone on a planet that was not on any map. His mission had been simple. Fly to the outer rim. Map the unknown systems. Report back to Earth. Easy work for a survey pilot with 10 years of experience. Nobody had expected him to find an inhabited planet out here. Nobody had expected him to crash on it. His survival suit was keeping him alive, but just barely. The water recycler was working. The temperature control was working. But the food supplies were almost gone. And his communication equipment was broken beyond repair. His only hope was the faint energy signature His scanner had detected to the south. It could be a city. It could be a trading post. It could be anything. But it was his only chance, so he walked toward it. 3 days of walking through endless sand. On the third night, under a sky full of strange stars, he found something that made him stop and stare. A head, sticking out of the sand. An alien head with smooth gray-blue skin and 4 closed eyes. Taiho's first thought was that it was a statue. Some kind of religious marker. The aliens on this planet probably had weird customs. Maybe they built statues in the desert. Maybe it was a grave marker. Then the head moved. The 4 eyes opened. They were large and luminous, reflecting the starlight like mirrors. They blinked once, twice. Then they focused on him with an expression of pure shock. "You're alive," Taiho said. His voice was rough from not speaking for 3 days. "Hold on. I'm going to get you out." His suit's translator kicked in, converting his words into sounds the alien could understand. He saw her flinch at the strange noises. Then her eyes went wide as she realized she could understand him. No, her voice was weak, barely more than a whisper. "If you free me, they will kill us both. Leave this place, stranger. Save yourself." Taiho was already on his knees, digging with his gloved hands. The sand was packed tight around her body. It would take time to get her out. "Yeah, that's not happening," he said. "You do not understand." She was trying to shake her head, but she could not move. "This is a punishment. A legal punishment. I broke the law. If you interfere, you become a criminal too." "What law did you break?" The alien was quiet for a moment. Her 4 eyes looked away from him. When she spoke again, her voice was filled with shame. "I refused to marry a man who would have hurt me." Taiho stopped digging. He looked at her face. Really looked at it. He saw the dried tears on her cheeks. He saw the fear in her eyes. He saw the marks on her neck where rough hands had grabbed her. Something hot and angry stirred inside his chest. "That's not a crime," he said quietly. "That's survival." He started digging again. Faster this time. Harder. His suit's exoskeleton hummed as he pushed his body beyond its normal limits. Sand flew everywhere. The hole grew deeper. The alien watched him with wonder in her eyes. She did not understand this creature. She did not understand why he would risk his life for a stranger. Among the Velith, people did not do such things. Everyone looked out for themselves. That was just how the world worked. But this strange being with only 2 eyes and 5-fingered hands did not seem to know that rule. It took an hour to free her. When the last of the sand fell away from her legs, she tried to stand. Her legs buckled immediately. She had been buried for too long. Her muscles had forgotten how to work. Taiho caught her before she hit the ground. He held her carefully, like she was something precious, something breakable. "Easy," he said. "Take it slow. Your body needs time." She looked up at him. This close, she could see his face through the clear helmet. He looked so strange. His skin was a pinkish color. His eyes were small and round, placed too close together on his flat face. His nose stuck out. His ears were on the sides of his head instead of the top. He was ugly by Velith standards. But his eyes were kind. That was what she noticed most. His eyes were full of kindness. "I cannot walk," she said. "Leave me here. Save yourself." Taiho snorted. It was a strange sound. She had never heard anything like it. "We already talked about this," he said. "That's not happening." He turned around and crouched down. He pulled her arms over his shoulders. He gripped her legs around his waist. Then he stood up, lifting her onto his back. She gasped. He was carrying her, just like that, like she weighed nothing at all. "There's a rock formation about 2 kilometers east," he said, looking at something on his wrist. Good shade. We can rest there. Get you some water. Figure out our next move. He started walking. She bounced gently on his back with each step. His body was warm through the suit. She could feel his muscles working beneath her. Why? She asked. The word came out broken. She was crying again. She had promised herself no more tears, but she could not stop them. Why would you do this? I am nothing to you. A stranger. An alien. You do not know my name. You do not know my people. Why would you risk everything for me? Taiho kept walking. For a long moment, he did not answer. The only sounds were his footsteps in the sand and the soft hum of his suit. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, matter of fact, like he was explaining something obvious. Because where I come from, we don't leave people to die in the sand. She pressed her face against his shoulder. Her tears soaked into the fabric of his suit. She could not remember the last time someone had shown her such kindness. Maybe no one ever had. My name is Yuna, she whispered. Taiho, he replied. Nice to meet you, Yuna. Sorry about the circumstances. She almost laughed, almost. It was such a strange thing to say. Such a human thing to say, though she did not know that word yet. They traveled through the night. The stars wheeled overhead. The cold wind blew sand across the dunes. And somewhere in the distance, the rock formation grew closer with each step. Yuna drifted in and out of sleep on Taiho's back. She dreamed of water. She dreamed of home. She dreamed of her sister Hana, alone and afraid, wondering what had happened to her. Hold on, little sister, she thought. I am still alive. Someone saved me. A stranger from the stars. When the first sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they reached the rocks. Taiho found a shallow cave that offered shelter from the coming heat. He sat Yuna down gently on the smooth stone floor. Then he pulled a small container from his pack and held it to her lips. Drink, he said. Slowly. The water was warm and had a strange metallic taste. But to Yuna, it was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. She drank until Taiho pulled the container away. Not too much at once, he said. Your body needs time to adjust. She nodded weakly. Her eyes were already closing. Exhaustion was pulling her down into darkness. The last thing she saw before sleep took her was Taiho sitting at the cave entrance, looking out at the desert, keeping watch, keeping her safe. Buried to her neck in the dunes. Part 3 High Priest. Dowan stood at the edge of the empty hole and felt rage burning in his chest. The sand showed clear signs of digging. Someone had been here. Someone had interfered with sacred justice. His son Minho stood beside him, his face twisted with anger. Minho was not a patient man. He was not a kind man. When he wanted something, he took it. And he had wanted Yuna from the moment he first saw her. Find her, Minho growled. Find her and bring her back to me. Dowan raised a hand to calm his son. He was studying the tracks in the sand. There were 2 sets of footprints leading away from the burial site. One was clearly Velith. The other was something different, heavier, with a strange pattern that he did not recognize. An offworlder, his aide said quietly. The orbital sensors detected a crash in the northern wastes 3 days ago. We assumed the pilot had died. Dowan's eyes narrowed. An offworlder. This changed things. Offworlders were rare on Cthulhu 7. The planet was far from the main trade routes. Most ships that came here did so by accident, but offworlders meant complications. Other species. Other governments. Other rules? What kind of offworlder? Dowan asked. His aide checked a small device. The ship design matches records of a species called humans. They come from a planet called Earth. They are relatively new to space travel, still expanding into the outer regions. Are they dangerous? The records say they are weak, fragile. They have short lives and soft bodies. One human alone would be easy to deal with. Dowan nodded slowly. Good. He could not allow this crime to go unpunished. If people learned that someone had escaped the singing dunes, others might find the courage to defy him. His power rested on fear. Without fear, he had nothing. Send 6 enforcers, he commanded. Find them. Kill the human. Bring the girl back alive. He paused and looked at his son. My son still desires her, and he will have her. Minho smiled. It was an ugly smile. A hungry smile. Like a predator looking at wounded prey. Within the hour, 6 enforcers mounted their sand skimmers and raced across the dunes. They were the best hunters on the planet. They had never failed to catch their target. This would be no different. Back in the cave, Yuna woke to the smell of something cooking. She opened her 4 eyes and saw Taiho crouched over a small device that was heating a metal container. Good morning, he said without looking up. Well, afternoon really. You slept a long time. How do you feel? Yuna took a moment to check her body. Her muscles ached. Her skin felt dry and tight. Her head hurt, but she was alive. That was more than she had expected. Better, she said. What is that smell? Breakfast. Or dinner. I'm not sure what time it is on this planet. He poured some thick liquid into a cup and handed it to her. It's a nutrition paste. Tastes terrible, but it'll give you energy. She took the cup and looked at the gray paste inside. He was right. It looked terrible, but she was so hungry that she did not care. She drank it down in 3 big gulps. Taiho watched her with a slight smile. There's more if you want it. She nodded eagerly. He gave her another cup, then another. Finally, she felt the empty hole inside her begin to fill. While she ate, she studied him. He had taken off his helmet. His face was strange but not unpleasant. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark brown. There were small lines around his eyes and mouth that suggested he smiled often. Why were you on this planet? She asked. I'm a survey pilot, he explained. My job is to explore new regions of space. Map planets. Collect data. I was supposed to be scouting this sector when my ship had a problem. I crashed about 3 days' walk north of here. You walked for 3 days? In this desert? He shrugged. Didn't have much choice. My ship is destroyed. My communication equipment is broken. The only way to call for help is to find a settlement with a communication array. Yuna felt guilt wash over her. Because of her, this human was now in danger. He had saved her life, and in return, she had made him a target. They will come for me, she said quietly. The temple enforcers. When they find a burial site empty, they will hunt me down. You should leave. Go find your communication array. I will only slow you down. Taiho looked at her for a long moment. His expression was hard to read. Then he shook his head. We've been over this, he said. I'm not leaving you behind. You do not understand how dangerous they are. The enforcers are trained killers. They have weapons, vehicles. They know this land. You are one person with nothing but a small gun. You cannot fight them. Maybe not. Taiho checked his pistol, examining its charge level. But I'm not going to run away and let them take you back to be buried again. That's not who I am. Yuna stared at him in confusion. She had lived her whole life among the Veloth. She knew how her people thought. Self-preservation was the highest value. You looked out for yourself and your family. Strangers were not your concern. This human was different. He seemed genuinely unable to understand why he should abandon her. It was like the concept simply did not exist in his mind. Your species, she said slowly. Humans, I have heard stories about you. They say you're fragile, short-lived, that you die easily. Taiho snorted again. That strange sound he made with his nose. We die easy enough, he admitted. We just don't stay down. What does that mean? Before he could answer, a sharp beeping sound filled the cave. Taiho grabbed the device from his belt and looked at it. His face went pale. 6 contacts, he said. Coming fast from the north. They'll be here in about 10 minutes. Fear gripped Yuna's heart. They had found her. The enforcers had tracked her somehow. Now they would kill Taiho and drag her back to face an even worse punishment. We have to run, she said, trying to stand. Her legs wobbled but held. If we move now, maybe we can stay ahead of them. Taiho shook his head. They have vehicles. We're on foot. We can't outrun them. He looked around the cave, studying its walls and ceiling. But this place is defensible. One narrow entrance. Good cover. If we have to fight, this is the best spot. Fight? Yuna's voice came out as a squeak. There are 6 of them. Professional soldiers. You cannot fight 6 enforcers. Taiho was already moving. He pulled small objects from his pack and began placing them around the cave entrance. His movements were quick and precise. He had done this before. Probably not, he agreed. But I can make it expensive. Yuna watched him work. She did not understand what he was doing. She did not understand this human at all. He was facing almost certain death, and he seemed almost calm about it. Why? The question burst from her again. I keep asking, but I do not understand. Why would you die for me? What is wrong with you? Taiho paused. He turned to look at her. In the dim light of the cave, his 2 eyes were steady and warm. Nothing is wrong with me, he said. This is just what humans do. We stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. We fight for strangers. We refuse to look away when someone needs help. But why? Because that's what makes us human. He turned back to his work. Because if we don't help each other, then what's the point of anything? Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. The enforcers were almost here. Yuna moved deeper into the cave. Her legs were shaking. Her hearts were pounding. But somewhere deep inside, she felt something new. Something she had not felt in a long time, not hope, that maybe they would die here today. Maybe the enforcers would win. But at least she would not die alone. At least she had met one good person before the end. At least she had met Taiho. Buried to her neck in the dunes. Part 4. The 6 sand skimmers surrounded the rock formation like wolves circling wounded prey. Their engines hummed in the hot afternoon air. Dust swirled around them in small tornadoes. The lead enforcer, a scarred veteran named Kyung, stepped off his vehicle and studied the rocks. He had been hunting criminals for 20 years. He had never lost a target. This would be no different. He lifted a voice amplifier to his mouth. The sound echoed across the empty desert. Surrender the female, and you may leave this world alive, Offworlder. This is not your affair. Walk away now, and no harm will come to you. Inside the cave, Taiho listened to the words. His translation software converted them into sounds he could understand. He almost laughed. Did they really think he would just hand Yuna over? Did they think he was that kind of person? He finished placing the last of his survey charges. They were small explosives, designed for clearing debris during exploration missions. Not really weapons, but in the right place, at the right time, they could do serious damage. Yuna crouched behind a large rock near the back of the cave. She was trembling. Her 4 eyes were wide with fear. She had seen what enforcers could do. She had seen the bodies they left behind. You should surrender, she whispered. Tell them I forced you to help me. Tell them I threatened you. They might believe it. They might let you go. Taiho checked his plasma pistol one more time. 18 shots. Not many. You would have to make each one count. I've never lied to save myself before, he said. I'm not going to start now. Then we will both die here. Maybe? He moved to the cave entrance and pressed himself against the wall. But I've been in bad situations before. I'm still here. Outside, Kyung was losing patience. The twin suns were high overhead. The heat was terrible. He wanted this finished quickly. You have 1 minute, he shouted. After that, we come in and take her by force. You will not survive. Taiho looked at Yuna. She was crying again. Silent tears running down her gray-blue cheeks. He wished he could comfort her. He wished he could promise her that everything would be okay, but he had never been good at lying. Yuna, he said quietly, I need to tell you something. In case things go bad. She looked at him, waiting. On Earth, there's an old story. A man walks down a beach. The beach is covered with starfish. Thousands of them, stranded on the sand, dying in the sun. The man starts picking them up, one by one, and throwing them back into the ocean. Yuna did not understand. What were starfish? What was an ocean? But she listened anyway. Someone comes up to the man and tells him he's wasting his time. There are too many starfish. He can't possibly save them all. What's the point of trying? What did the man do? Taiho smiled. It was a sad smile, but also warm. He picked up another starfish, threw it into the water, and said, made a difference to that one. He looked directly into her eyes. All 4 of them. Today, Yuna, you're my starfish. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that. Saving you mattered. Even if we don't make it out of here, saving you was worth it. Yuna's heart broke and healed at the same time. She had never met anyone like this human. She had never known such people existed. Time's up, Kyung's voice echoed outside. Move in. The first enforcer entered the cave with his weapon raised. He was confident, trained, professional. He never saw the small device attached to the rock above his head. Taiho pressed the trigger. The charge exploded with a deafening boom. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Dust filled the air. The enforcer screamed as debris buried him. 2 more enforcers rushed in, firing blindly into the darkness. Their energy beams lit up the cave like lightning. Taiho rolled behind a boulder and fired back. His plasma pistol cracked twice. 1 enforcer fell. The other dove for cover. Outside, Kyung cursed. This was not supposed to happen. 1 human with a small pistol should not be causing this much trouble. All of you, move in together, he ordered. Rush him. He cannot fight all of us at once. 3 enforcers charged the entrance at the same time. Taiho was ready. He detonated his second charge. The explosion collapsed part of the cave entrance, crushing 1 enforcer beneath the rubble. The other 2 stumbled and fell. Taiho was on them instantly. He moved faster than they expected. His suit's exoskeleton gave him strength and speed beyond normal human limits. He hit 1 enforcer across the face with his pistol. The enforcer's helmet cracked. He went down. The second enforcer swung a blade at Taiho's head. Taiho ducked and drove his elbow into the enforcer's stomach. The enforcer doubled over. Taiho brought his knee up into the enforcer's face. Another 1 down, but he was not fast enough to avoid the third. Attack. Kyung had entered the cave through a gap in the collapsed rocks. His weapon was pointed directly at Taiho's chest. He fired. The energy beam hit Taiho in the side. He felt the heat burn through his suit, felt his skin blister and tear. He staggered back, clutching his wound. Kyung smiled. Blood from a cut on his forehead ran down his scarred face. Not bad, Offworlder. You fight better than I expected. But it's over now. Taiho looked down at his wound. It was bad. Very bad. But he was still standing. He still had his pistol. He raised it with a shaking hand. Kyung's eyes went wide. You should be on the ground. That wound should have killed you. Humans, Taiho said through gritted teeth, are hard to kill. He fired. The plasma bolt hit Kyung in the shoulder. The enforcer spun around and fell. His weapon clattered away across the rocks. Taiho tried to walk toward him. His legs gave out. He fell to his knees. The cave swam around him. He was losing too much blood. Yuna ran to his side. She caught him before he hit the ground. She pulled him behind a rock, away from the entrance. "You're hurt," she said, her voice high with panic. "You're bleeding. What do I do?" "Tell me what to do." Taiho forced himself to focus. He pointed at his pack with a weak hand. Medical kit. Inside pocket. Blue container. She found it and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were strange devices and containers she did not recognize. "The spray," Taiho said. "Gray can." Pointed at the wound. "Press the top." She did as he said. A white foam sprayed out and covered the burned flesh. Taiho hissed in pain, but the bleeding began to slow. "Good," he gasped. "Good. Now the injector. The red one. Put it against my neck. Press the button." She found the injector and pressed it to his skin. There was a soft click. Taiho's body relaxed slightly. Some color returned to his face. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I can work with this." Outside the cave, they could hear groaning. The injured enforcers were slowly recovering. Some of them might still be able to fight. Taiho grabbed his pistol and checked the charge. 8 shots left. "How many did we get?" he asked. Yuna looked toward the entrance. She counted the bodies. 4 down. 2 ran away. "The one you shot last is still moving." Taiho nodded. He tried to stand. His legs wobbled but held. The drugs in his system were pushing the pain away, but he knew it was only temporary. "We need to move," he said, "before they call for reinforcements." Yuna supported him as they walked toward the entrance. They passed the groaning form of Kyung on the ground. The enforcer looked up at them with hatred in his eyes. "This is not over," Kyung spat. "The high priest will send more. 100 more. You cannot escape." Taiho looked down at him. Despite everything, there was no hatred in his eyes. Only determination. "Maybe," he said. "But today, we won." They stepped out into the sunlight. The 2 escaped enforcers were distant specks on the horizon, racing back toward the temple. Yuna looked at the human beside her. He was pale, sweating, barely able to stand. But he was smiling. "You beat them," she said in wonder. "You actually beat them." "We beat them," he corrected. "I couldn't have done that without you." She shook her head. "I did nothing. I hid. I was useless. You kept me calm. You gave me something to fight for." He looked at her with those strange 2 eyes. "That's not nothing, Yuna. That's everything." They started walking, slowly, painfully, but moving forward, together. Buried to her neck in the dunes. Part 5. The trading outpost was small and dusty, sitting at the edge of the great desert like a forgotten toy. Most travelers passed through without stopping. It was not a place where important things happened, until the day a wounded human and a condemned Velith woman stumbled through the gates. The outpost had a communication array, old and unreliable, but functional. It took Taiho 3 hours to repair it enough to send the signal. His hands were shaking from pain and blood loss. Twice he passed out and had to be woken by Yuna, but he kept working. When the signal finally went out, carrying his emergency beacon across the stars, he collapsed against the wall and closed his eyes. "Is it done?" Yuna asked. "It's done," he whispered. "Now we wait." 6 hours later, a United Earth Rapid Response Frigate dropped out of hyperspace above Kethra 7. Within another hour, A shuttle was descending toward the outpost. Ambassador Jisoo Park stepped off the shuttle with 4 armed Marines behind her. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair, tied back in a tight bun. She had been a diplomat for 30 years. She had negotiated treaties with species that most humans had never heard of. She took one look at Taiho, lying on a makeshift bed with Yuna kneeling beside him, and her expression hardened. What happened here? She demanded. Taiho opened his eyes. Despite everything, he smiled. It's a long story, Ambassador. You might want to sit down. He told her everything. The crash. The walk through the desert. Finding Yuna buried in the sand. The fight at the cave. All of it. When he finished, Ambassador Park was quiet for a long moment. Her face gave away nothing. Then she turned to her aide. Contact the planetary government. Tell them that a United Earth citizen was attacked without provocation. Tell them we want a meeting with the ruling council in 6 hours. She looked at Yuna. Her expression softened slightly. You, she said. Do you have family here? Anyone who might be in danger? Yuna's 4 eyes went wide. She had been so focused on survival that she had almost forgotten. My sister, she gasped. Hannah. She's still in our dwelling. If the High Priest knows I escaped, he might. Ambassador Park was already giving orders. Send a team to collect the girl. Bring her to the ship. Keep her safe. 2 Marines left immediately. Taiho reached out and took Yuna's hand. Her skin was cool and smooth against his. It's going to be okay, he said. They'll find her. Yuna squeezed his hand tight. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. 4 hours later, a small shuttle docked with the frigate. Yuna was waiting in the hangar when the doors opened. Her heart stopped when she saw the small figure step out. Hana! Her sister ran toward her. They crashed into each other, holding tight, crying. Hannah was shaking. Her eyes were red from crying. But she was alive. She was safe. They came for me, Hana sobbed. Strange soldiers in different armor. I thought they were going to hurt me. But they said you sent them. They said you were alive. I am, Yuna said. I'm alive. Because of him. She pointed to where Taiho was lying in a medical pod, surrounded by doctors. He was unconscious now. The machines around him beeped steadily. Hana looked at the strange alien. He saved you? He did more than that. He fought for me. He almost died for me. And he did not even know my name when he started digging me out of the sand. Hana stared at the human with wonder in her young eyes. She had never heard of such a thing. It sounded like a story. Like something from old legends. Why? She asked. Why would he do that? Yuna remembered the story Taiho had told her. The man on the beach. The starfish. Making a difference to one. Because that's what humans do. She said. That's who they are. The next day, Ambassador Park stood before the ruling council of Cathara 7. High Priest Dawan was there, sitting in his ornate chair like he owned the world. His son Minho sat beside him, glaring at everyone with angry eyes. Ambassador Park presented her evidence calmly and professionally. Recordings from Taiho's suit camera. Medical scans showing Yuna's injuries. Testimony from the outpost workers who had witnessed their arrival. When she finished, she looked directly at Dawan. Your enforcers attacked a protected citizen of the United Earth Exploratory Course. Your laws condemned an innocent woman to death for refusing an unwanted marriage. These are violations of basic rights recognized by every civilized species in this sector. Dawan tried to look calm, but sweat was forming on his forehead. He had expected to handle this quietly. He had not expected a human warship to appear in orbit. Our internal matters are not your concern, he said. The woman was a criminal under our law. Your law is wrong. Ambassador Park's voice was cold as ice. And frankly, High Priest, I don't care about your law. I care about the fact that a good man almost died because of your cruelty. That's something I take very personally." The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They could see which way the wind was blowing. Darwin's power came from fear. But fear only worked when you were the strongest person in the room. Right now, that person was Ambassador Park Dodd. By the end of the day, everything had changed. The council voted to strip Darwin of his title. His son Minho was arrested for crimes against women. The ancient punishment of the singing dunes was abolished forever, and Una, the woman who had dared to say no, was declared innocent of all charges. She stood in the medical bay of the Earth frigate, watching through the viewport as her world turned slowly below. Hana was beside her, still holding her hand like she was afraid to let go. The door hissed open. Taiho limped in, wrapped in bandages but moving under his own power. The doctors had told him to rest. He had ignored them. "Ambassador says the new council wants formal diplomatic relations with Earth," he said. Apparently, saving one woman started a revolution. Una turned to face him. Her 4 eyes shimmered with tears. Good tears this time. Happy tears. "You did this," she said. "All of this. Because you refused to walk past." Taiho shrugged, then winced at the motion. His ribs were still healing. "I just threw a starfish." Una moved toward him. She pressed her forehead against his chest, directly over his heart. She could feel it beating. Strong and steady, human. "Among my people," she whispered. "This gesture means something important. It means you are my shelter from the suns, my shade in the dunes. I will not forget what you did." Not ever. Taiho was still for a moment. Then, gently, he placed his hand on top of her head. "Among mine," he said. "This means you're welcome. And you're safe now." Hannah watched them with wide eyes. She looked at the human who had saved her sister. Then she looked out the viewport at the stars spread across the darkness like scattered diamonds. "Are all humans like you?" she asked. Taeho thought about the question. He thought about Earth, about its history, its wars and crimes, its failures and cruelties. Humans were not perfect. They had never been perfect. "No," he admitted. "Not all of us. But enough of us are. And we're working on the rest." Outside, the twin suns of Kethra 7 rose on a new day. The first day of real freedom for the women of that world. The first day of a new future. And somewhere out in the galaxy, the story began to spread. Ship to ship. World to world. Species to species. The story of the human who found a stranger buried in the sand and refused to walk away. They said humans were weak, fragile, easy to kill. They were wrong. Humans were stubborn, compassionate, impossibly brave. They would fight for strangers, die for strangers, change entire worlds for strangers, not because it was smart, not because it was safe, not because it made sense, but because it was right. That was humanity's gift to the stars. Not weapons, not technology, not conquest. Just the simple, powerful, beautiful belief that every life mattered, that every person deserved a chance, that no one should be left to die alone in the sand. Una looked at Taiho. He looked back at her. And in that moment, 2 species, 2 worlds, 2 hearts became one. "Thank you," she said. He smiled. "Anytime." Outside, the stars waited. Billions of them. Each one a sun. Each sun a world. Each world full of people who had never heard of humans. Not yet. But they would. Soon enough, they would. And when they did, they would learn what humanity already knew. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change everything. Sometimes, one person is enough. Sometimes, all it takes is someone brave enough to start digging.